be here tonight. Neither were the Cook Islands. I returned from there this morning. I was meant to get back Thursday night, but we were delayed 1.5 days, so I landed in Wellington at around 10 o'clock this morning, and 55 minutes at home before I jumped on the Uber back to the airport so I could make it up here for Cam's function tonight. I have to say it's really good to see Winston here tonight. It's actually the first time I've caught up with Winston since he was Foreign Minister. Not this time, not the time before, but the time before that. I remember it well because we were in the Select Committee corridor and I was chatting to Paul Plummer, and Winston came up and said, gee, Paul didn't notice me, and proceeded to loudly inform me and the entire corridor that he was suing me for defamation. And something that after Winston went off, Paul said, I always wondered if Winston read Kiwi blog. I guess he does. I actually Winston did get a bit worried about this, so I went to a friend who worked for Radio New Zealand and said, oh, Winston just said he's going to sue me for defamation. Should I go get a lawyer? And she went, oh, he's going to sue me also. I said, oh, when was that? She goes, Thursday. I did feel better after that. Now, being a blogger and known as a friend of Cam's is always a fun thing to do. Now, I'd share two of the most common questions I get. The first one, and I've kept count of how often this has happened, on 436 occasions, someone, often an MP or a staffer, has called me and said, Dave, could you go talk to Cam and ask him to change something he's written? They never go to Cam direct. They always thought somehow coming to me was the good idea. And I've also kept track of how often, for every time I go to Cam and say, oh, so-and-so's a bit upset, etc., and my strike rate is 0. But they still come through.
So I got a call once from Jason E, and he said to me, he said, oh, the boss is a little unhappy. He's doing too fucking bad. And he said, oh, he wants you to change the post. I said, what? I haven't received the check. And he said, well, can you just change it, you know? And I said, well, no. I said, if the boss wants it changed, the boss can ring me. I'd rather talk to the organ grinder than the monkey. And he said, so that's a no then? I said, yes. He said, oh, well, then, you know, I said, well, what? And the answer was, oh, well, we might take you off. I said, see how that works out for you. And they didn't. And even though the politicians say they don't talk to me, they do. And that's because I don't change. The one thing I did change, I wrote a blog post. I was given the information by another MP. The information was wrong. It was about Chris Carter. And Chris Carter picked up the phone and rang me. Said, Cam, you got that wrong. I said, okay, well, I'll remove the post and I'll put up an apology. And he said, oh, thanks for that. And Chris Carter and I have been in contact ever since. Now he's on the left. But he picked the phone up. And that showed courage, and I respect courage. What I don't respect is weakness. Remember when Chris Carter was doing some shenanigans in the background and undermining leaders and stuff like that? But I was given some information about him by a national MP, and that made it up, basically. So I withdrew it and apologised to Chris Carter, but I admired his courage to pick up the phone and ring.
Now, the other question that I often would get asked in the early years of Cam is, why is Cam's blog called Whale Oil Be Hot? And I would never stop enjoying going to them, say it quickly with an Irish accent, and say the little can come on. People for years thought there was some deep symbolic meaning that came like Wales, and it's like, it's a fucking joke. It's just a joke.
But it has been a joke. You know, Lydiaga wrote a stupid book, and he took it all seriously. Like half the stuff that he wrote about was a fucking joke. You know, we did things because A, we could, and B, it was fun. And that was the only thing that drove us to do anything. It was fun, and we could do it.
Now, as you know, I've been a blogger along with Cam for this time, but there's a big difference though between Cam and I, or more than one difference you might say. Cam is the only professional blogger in New Zealand, as in he makes a living off it. For 21 years, Cam has lived off the blog. No one else has done that. This was the era before Substack, and that's quite amazing. Blog's my hobby. My day job, for those who don't know, I run a polling company. I do have to say that I'm starting to think you shouldn't trust the polls, because for the last 9 months, every month Winston goes up and up in the polls. Gordon was the most popular party leader in Parliament, so I look at these numbers and go, oh, fuck
Did you make the numbers up like you did for Bill English? Well, no, that wasn't for Bill English. You did it for Murray, and then Murray made the numbers up.
Okay, I'll tell the story, but it's a good one. I'll slight diversion. In 1999, I was doing Nationals polls, and we weren't meant to poll Thursday night because what's the point? Friday is the election. You can't campaign, really. But McCully rang up and said, no, we just want to know, can you do a poll Thursday night? So, it's stupid, you can't change anything, but we did it. And it showed us 8% behind. The actual election result was 8% behind. Then Jeff Grant, the campaign manager, phoned me up. And I just softened the hell up. They're not going to make decisions on it. So I told Jeff, we're around 6% behind. He goes, thanks. Yeah. And then Jeff gets a call half an hour later from McCully. McCully's like, what's it looking like? And Jeff goes, we're around 4 or 5%. And then the next day, at the final campaign committee meeting, 6 o'clock in the morning, Jenny goes, so what's the final poll, Murray? We're only 2% behind. Oh, fuck. So ever since that day, I've never sugarcoated it to try and take this thing away. But look, going back to Cam, 20 years, professional blogger, there's the blogs that come and go, people keep up as their hobby. But Cam, he's done merchandising, he's done subscriptions, he's now become a broadcaster. It is quite exceptional. Now, he's had a few challenges during those times. He's had quite a few lawsuits. He's won a few. He's lost 1 or 2 on appeal. He should have won those ones. He's had a stroke. He's had that wonderful book in 2014, which projected national to the biggest ever majority. You might be interested in that book. Of course, I have my own chapter in that. I counted up how many times it got mentioned during the election campaign. There were 4,000 stories on it. In the poll,
That's domination.
When we asked people what was the most important issue, 1.1% of New Zealanders said that was the most important issue, but there were 4,000 stories on it. Quite exceptional. Now, look, people ask, what's a blogger? Are we part of the media? You hear about legacy media, mainstream media, traditional media. I don't see there's a difference now. You've got journalists who now write purely on Substack. That's effectively Bernard Hickey now makes his living off Substack. Lots of lefties. It's interesting that Cam has had 3 different sides, but they keep coming to whichever one he's at. They don't go to Whale Oil because of the name. They didn't go to the BFD because of the name. They go because it's Cam. And I think that's the lesson for journalism today, is people form a relationship with individuals. They like them, they trust them. They may agree, they may not agree, but they identify with them. If you think about News Talk ZB, I don't think it's the News Talk ZB brand that people associate with. They like Mike, they like Heather, they tolerate her husband sometimes. Etc. But this is the world we live in, where people search for someone who they think they say what they believe. And in both politics and to a degree journalism, you get sort of too often these talking points or a bit of balance each side. Like, you take an example where yesterday in the Te Pahi, Mariko leader came out and said his personal hero is the military dictator of Sierra Leone. And the media just do a story. He has been criticised by David Seymour for this. It's like, it's just a minor thing. Because none of them are willing to go out there and say, this is crazy. You've got someone saying their personal hero is a guy who said countries do badly with democracy.
Then Todd Muller got mercilessly shamed because he had a marker hat.
Exactly. So I think that is part of what Cam's success has been, is you may, like me, sometimes read what Cam has said and go, oh my God, I can't believe he said that. But you know it can be Cam. So look, that's all I really wanted to cover. It's been a lot of fun spending 20 years competing with Cam, occasionally collaborating with him, sometimes disagreeing, sometimes agreeing.
It's hard working with a Pinko.
I think everyone's a Pinko compared to you.
Simon's definitely not a Pinko.
No, Simon, well, I don't know. He's a bit soft when it comes to his dogs.
You haven't seen him boot them.
Okay, thanks a lot.